Hey, YouTube, how's it going? We're doing this a little bit earlier because everyone was available instead of waiting until 10:30. My time, 10:30. So we're gonna get started with Bathory Part 2. And we had, we jammed in the last six albums. The first six we did in the first part, and this latter six we're doing this second part here. So, Devon, you have something you want to show? So this is Requiem, and this came out November 14th, 1994. Black Mark, Porthon Boss, Montezuma Studios. Go ahead, Devin. What you got?
So, to me, this is kind of an underrated record. This is, though it's nowhere near as good as this. This is like kind of like Blood, Fire, Death without the more epic stuff because a lot of that record was super thrashy. This is kind of like that, but different vocal style. Vocals on here, honestly, not that good. And there's a drum machine, which after a while gets kind of annoying. And the bass is almost as loud as the guitar too, which is kind of weird to hear that. But there are some good songs in here, like the title track, Prostitution, War Machine, Blood and Soil, Apocalyptics. But yeah, not one of his best, obviously, but still a good record for when you're in the mood for a good thrash album. So yeah, consider it came out in, when did this come out again?
94.
Yeah, you could definitely do a lot worse. Because there's definitely a lot worse mid-90s thrash albums than this one. So yeah.
Yeah, let me see. Hang on a sec. Damn it. There we go. Now I can see. Yeah, it came out November 14th, 1994. This was I guess we should mention this comes out after Quorthon did his first solo album, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was the name of that band? Was it just called Quorthon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never checked it out. What's pretty shitty?
Not really. It's not really metal. It's more like kind of like alt rock.
Like grunge, right?
Yeah. Like my one of my best friends growing up, we were both really into Bathory together, like through high school. He was really big on those Quorthon albums, just because they were so different and they were just.
I never checked them out. I didn't honestly.
I never bought them. I guess the albums are kind of hard to get a hold of now. Like
I would imagine, yeah. But I didn't even know he did solo albums. So
yeah, it was just. I think the one album was called Album.
Yeah, this Requiem is kind of the return. It's it's very thrashy, very black and thrashy. There's quite a bit of punk vibes to it. There's some killer guitar tones on it, man. I mean, it's got some scorching guitar tones. I mean, they're very modern sounding. It's that scoop mid, that Mesa sound. I didn't mind it. I mean, I don't think I recalled really listening to that. If it is, it's been 10 years. The drums and drum programming are a little There's some sketchiness in there if you're listening carefully.
Oh, and there's one part I forgot to mention. You can hear his amp fucking up in the middle of one of the songs, and he's left it in.
What song is that?
Sounds par for the course, man.
I don't remember. I know it was on side 2. I don't remember what song it was. Maybe like Suffocate, but I could be wrong. I know it was on side 2 though.
Yeah, I mean, there's some crushing riffs on this thing. It's a bit heavier and sludgier than the other thrash albums. Prostitution's good. Necroticus. I like that one quite a bit. It's the same production on everything. The vocals are here. At least you can get away with the shitty vocals because they fit the music. War Machine starts out. War Machine's kind of an interesting track. It's a little different. I guess the only major problem I have with this album is pretty much every song sounds the same. It's just
that was my beef with it.
Start to finish, it's just brutal, and it's the same. It's the same, pretty much the same drum track, the same drum programming. So not. I mean, this is one that I'd listen to once. Probably, I doubt I'd ever go back to it. Personally.
Yeah.
It's probably
So-
like a 5.5 out of 10 for me.
That's fair.
Yeah, it seems like this is probably the longest time he took in between albums for this one.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, so going back to Requiem for the first time in a really long time, I decided I actually liked it better than when I first heard it years and years ago. Couple things that stood out to me is there's almost kind of an industrial vibe to the album. Like his vocals, the first thing I thought of, and again, like I hadn't listened to this in 15 years, something like that. And his vocals sound like he was kind of going for some weird mix of like Al Jurgensen and Max Cavalera. Like,
Yeah, there's a little bit of a frontline assembly sort of vibe to him.
yeah, there wasn't. I don't know. It was just a different vocal styling, and even the production on it seemed kind of old Ministry-esque, almost distorted.
Yeah.
And actually, I wrote down some notes on this because it'd been so long. Some of the tracks, yeah, there were cool thrashy things going on, but I actually got kind of an old school Prong vibe too.
Oh yeah, big time.
Like he was listening to a lot of industrial and a lot of thrash and thrash industrial crossover type bands or something. Because
Yeah,
like
you can definitely hear the Pantera guitar tone.
yeah, but that's the thing that killed me. Is, it's funny like looking at YouTube comments on it because I was listening to it while I was doing other shit the other day, and people were like, oh man, Devon brings up that bass guitar, and people are like, oh man, it's so cool hearing a bass on a black metal album, and it's like, yeah, it's cool, but it kind of killed some of the vibe of some of the tracks for me, and actually just the overall production, like some really killer riff would start breaking in, and then those shitty as fuck programmed drums would kick in, and it would just toss everything out the window. So, but the one track I actually did really appreciate on it is actually Suffocate, just because of that groove it starts off with. I know it kind of picks up later on, but like it really breaks up the monotony of the album, and then it just goes back to status quo to close the album out. But Suffocate was probably like the standout track, just because it's not just a full-on thrash industrial banger.
Assault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that you're right. That's something to see.
And it's kind of late in the album too. And my other big beef with this album really fucking was the fact that they listed the songs in alphabetical order. The only way that you find the actual proper track listing is on the CD itself, or maybe on the repress of the album.
Oh god, that's cheap. How about that? That's funny.
Vinyl, Devon?
No, they named it in the correct order on the vinyl.
Yeah, and actually, I think is that a reissue? Dev?
Yeah. I don't know when this came out.
Because the original one had the original pressing, even vinyl and CD was black. They used black font for the logo and the album title on that cover. But I like how the red stands out.
Yeah.
Jimmy, what you got?
I had never listened to this before until getting ready for this this stream, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I remember always hearing and reading that these sort of I guess they call this sort of a comeback album because it was the longest that he took, between albums. I don't know if maybe he had like stopped. I think it was like 3 or 4 years until between Twilight of the Gods and Requiem. So I don't know if he was planning on putting it to bed or then then it wasn't an actual comeback. But I mean it's interesting to listen to because like to me it doesn't sound like I mean he's not a stranger to thrash metal at all. I mean there's a lot of thrash in the early days, but this is not at all the thrash of early days. It definitely sounds like there's a lot of a newer influence on what he's like doing here, and it's kind of interesting to see that like this is the decision. I mean the guy was always flirting between styles, and after doing Hammerheart and Twilight of the
Twilight.
Gods. It's kind of I don't know like what it was like at the time, like if those were like well received or just kind of not understood at the time. So maybe he tried to go back and take what he had learned with thrash and kind of introduce like a kind of a new vibe to the thrash. I mean, because like to me, like I definitely hear what Tyler was saying, like some of the Ministry and maybe like some of the more chugga kind of Pantera vibe to it. But I almost kind of heard like some suicidal tendencies thrash kind of stuff.
There is.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with like his vocals. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And I don't know like if he really planned on this being what he was going to go forward with, or it was just like at the time what worked, just whatever he was writing. But I enjoyed it. I mean, like I don't know that I would really go back to it. Just I'm not really a huge thrash guy anyway. But in the sort of pantheon, it definitely stands apart from anything he had done thrash wise previously. And I would say it definitely pales in comparison to like some of the thrash he did in his early days. But it's just an interesting listen to see kind of like where he was trying to figure out what he was going to do going forward with riffing. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if people really dug this at the time, or I know that these records are kind of these days look kind of down upon, but I didn't think it was nearly as bad as I was expecting it to be when I listened to it. I only listened to it twice through
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Yeah.
I couldn't really remember if I had listened to it before, but Devon was pretty much. He likes that one, but he was kind of shitting all over this year, saying, "Oh, you're gonna hate this. You're gonna hate this." And I actually kind of preferred it because I think it's what he does well, especially from the vocal standpoint.
Yeah, it's catchy. It's it's just kind of fun music. I mean, it does kind of repeat itself. It feels like some of the riffs kind of start to blend together. But
right,
it's also interesting to hear like mid '90s era drum machine kind of stuff where nobody really had that sort of thing dialed in. I don't think, except maybe things like industrial bands or because it does very much sound like an industrial kind of drum, but it's just. I had to kind of do a double take because if you look at Encyclopedia Metallium, it says that it was the drummer from the last albums, but I mean, it's most definitely a drum machine, right?
Well, you got to keep in mind too that the name of that drummer is whoever was supposedly playing drums took that moniker. That moniker, so it wasn't always the same guy. But yeah, I saw that too. But that's the thing you got to keep in mind with the encyclopedia is just anyone can submit information, and anyone can kind of edit their information. So it's like you kind of take things you read on there with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I always knew of these just to be completely true solo albums. Like he didn't have a band, and you could tell.
That's kind of what I gathered. It seemed like that was, and I mean that you listen to that drum programming, there are some fuck ups in there. There's some kind of obvious ones.
Oh yeah,
and it's just, and I'm not even a drum guy, but you could hear where, oops, and he just left it. So,
but
all right.
Actually, I wanted to bring up one quick point that Jimmy was mentioning about this being the follow-up album, the Twilight of the Gods, and you got to keep in mind that Twilight at one point he was considering that to be the final Bathory album. Right. So Requiem was basically a comeback album, but I don't know if it was because Twilight caught fire and got real popular, or those Jubileum albums or compilations rather they put out in between, like got a lot of people turned on to Bathory, and maybe there was a little bit of noise to bring the project back. But I know that he talked about, and I think it's in the. I can't remember where I read that. Maybe it was in the Blood on Ice novella that makes up the lyric booklet. I think he talks about Twilight that was supposed to be the final album.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was always. But I mean, you could never really count on what that guy was going to say from day to day to day. So
true.
He kind of went with the whims, whatever his whim was,
Yep.
Anybody else have anything more to say on Requiem? I mean, it's an interesting thrash album. It's not nearly as horrible as I thought it was going to be. It's not really super like a game changer. I think it's just kind of there.
Yeah,
And probably,
I mean,
like I said, probably not one I'd revisit a lot.
it's surprisingly intense, even
Yeah, I
compared
think-
to
Yeah.
older stuff.
Well, the nice thing is it's 33 minutes. Doesn't overstay
Yeah,
its
short.
welcome.
And I think
Yeah.
people like probably like try to measure it up to like the great Bathory works. And if you kind of just like listen to it
Oh, yeah.
out of context and just kind of, it's actually pretty good. You know, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. Devin, you got the next one.
Oh
You
fuck
got,
no! This,
Octagon.
no,
Oh, you don't have this one.
No, you know my opinion about this record.
Anybody? Does
Ironically enough,
anybody
I
own
don't
this
have
one?
this album either. I thought I did, but I don't think I ever owned it.
I don't either.
Which is, but I
Oh,
do have
well,
some
well-
thoughts on it.
It has like a pentagram on it, I think, doesn't it?
it's a pentagram, but it's like a,
It's like blood pentagram with a
Yeah.
shitty blue painting thing.
I mean,
So Octagon came out. Looks like I got two different dates: 10/17/95, I believe.
yeah, 95 is
Um,
the first date listed on the archives.
Yeah, it came out from Hellhole Studios. Interesting. Black Mark, Corathon, and Boss again. This one is an even more intense thrash. I'll let Tyler, why don't you go ahead and start?
So, of the two, so my opinion's a little different on these albums. So, of the two between Requiem and Octagon, I was shocked to find that I enjoyed Octagon infinitely better than I did Requiem. And I think it's because of the production. The production was a lot more dialed in. The drum machine didn't sound like absolute dog shit. And I don't know, it felt like a metal album for the time. So like I wrote in my little notes that it was like 1990s Bay Area thrash is realized by Corathon is what it sounded like to me. You know, with real heavy emphasis on the groove. I mean, there's a lot of parts on there that sound like Divine Intervention Slayer. Matter of fact, one of the tracks, Gray, it sounds like exactly like a lost track off of Divine Intervention. So you could tell that there was definitely some newer Slayer influence going on there. And ironically enough, some of these songs I felt like would have fit on like God Hates Us All Slayer, but that came out years later. So that makes you wonder if Kerry King or whoever actually like really dug the shit out of this album, then wrote some complimentary music for that album, because it's real heavy on the groove.
Yeah, it's definitely groovy. There's some good riffs on here, though. I mean, it's a little long,
Fucking heavy. Like I was,
but it's heavy,
I was
man.
shocked
I
at the
mean,
guitar tone on it.
yeah, the guitar tone's savage. Again, this would be one that I could jam in passing and have no problem having on in the background. But would it ever be something I reach for to get off the shelf? Probably not. Just there's nothing there that's interesting enough to me to go, oh, this is this is a regular listen. If I'm going to listen to thrash, I'm going to pick something I enjoy a little better. I mean, a lot, and I will say, some of the lyrics on this thing, oh my god.
Oh, dude,
Jesus.
I remember reading through the lyrics like once, and I was like,
What's 13? What's the 30
I'm just
something?
gonna
Is that
put
the
this
one?
back in the case and like my friends.
What's the
CD
one
and
album?
Never read them again.
What's that song called? 30
Thir-
something.
33 something.
Yeah, suck my dick,
Yeah, 33 something. Yeah.
drink my cum, eat my shit.
It says, drink my cum, take my rum, blooded hole, twisted soul, eat my dick, suck my dick, wrath and pain, and die
Wow.
insane.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Just
So
I
bad.
don't know, man.
One of 33 something, all who were raped and bled, the last thing you ever did before you were fucking dead is drink my cum, take my rum, blooded hole. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's rough under any
Which
circumstances.
15-year-old wrote the lyrics to that song? Jesus
Yeah, right.
Christ.
Hey, maybe he found an old notebook. Some old
I don't know.
lyrics.
There's some good. There's
some
some
old
good
death metal
stuff.
lyrics.
There's some good stuff in here. There's a very abrasive guitar tone that I like. It has sort of that, almost has an Exodus vibe to the guitar.
Yes, that was the other thing I was going to
It's got
say.
that real crunchy high gain sound that is really unique to Gary. Gary Holt loves that sound. I don't always love that
Even some
sound.
of the riff structures, some of the riffs, like fuck, what song was it? Was it Psychopath? Sociopath. It was one of those two. Like once it got going, I was like, this sounds like an Exodus song. Like once it got
Yeah.
cooking, just like the way the riff was played, because Exodus kind of had their own unique spin for sure.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this like I said, this would be I would never have to hear it again. If I did hear it again, it wouldn't be horrible. Devin had me
Yeah.
believing this is going to be the worst thing I ever heard in my life, but you know, it wasn't amazing.
It wasn't good either.
Wasn't real good either. Yeah.
yeah, I was surprised to find going back to these. I actually enjoyed this better than Requiem. Because
I think
when
I was on the
younger, I
same.
kind of
I was
remembered
on
the
this.
inverse of that.
I liked the production better.
Yeah.
Way better. The
Except
riffs
that
were savage.
Christianity- Yeah.
Riffs were savage either way.
Oh,
What you got, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think I probably spent the least time listening to this one in prep for this because I hadn't heard this one either. Before getting ready for the stream, and I think I would say I enjoyed Requiem. I think a little bit more than this one, just because I liked sort of the compactness of that record. Like it's not, this is like 11 tracks. Of course, there's a Kiss cover at the end of it. The first time I tried to get through it, I only got through a few songs, and I just couldn't. I don't know, for whatever reason, I couldn't stomach it. But listened to it again a couple of days ago, and yeah, I think the production's a little bit better. It's almost like he just didn't give a shit anymore, and just I mean, with 33 something, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really have too much on this one because I just didn't spend enough time with it. But I kind of got through, like, I don't even think I got through the whole thing the first time. I got through most of it the second time, and it just kind of felt to me like this is definitely more for the Bathory completist. I think, if I was to choose, I don't know, just Requiem, just kind of just it was a little more concise for me, just in terms of like it's not too overbearing. It's just kind of a short, to the point record, where this was like he kind of took that and tried to expand at least the sound a little bit. There's definitely some good riffs, but yeah, I just didn't spend enough time with it to really say whether I loved it or not. I mean, I just think that it's just kind of more like, if I really wanted to be a completist, I'd probably spend a lot more time with it. But at this point, there were, at least prep for the stream, there was a lot more stuff that I wanted to just kind of flesh out a bit more than this record. So
yeah, I mean, the thing about this record I found was, once you heard it, you heard it. It's not going to be revealing itself a lot to you over future listens. You know what I mean?
I gotta say, I love the title Schizianity, though. That's pretty
Yeah, that's good.
dude, the vocals on that song were so fucking bad.
Oh.
Oh, they were particularly bad on that one.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin might have this better production, Octagon, better songs, Requiem. That's probably right.
Yeah.
Poor Kellen jumped on. He got "Eat My Shit, Come Dick." Yeah, we were reading lyrics to a song, a Bathory song called 33 something, 30 something, something like that.
33 something.
33 something. Yeah.
So would that have been his age at this time, or was that just?
Well, that actual song's about the 33 John Wayne Gacy.
I was gonna say he died in 2004 and he was 38. So
Yeah, he was 38. But that 33 something, it refers to you're one of the 33 something under the house. Which, I mean, that part was pretty sickly poetic, but the rest of it was not. The rest of the lyrics were not.
Yeah, yeah.
At this point, he's really kind of like, I don't know. This guy seems to go through a lot of, sort of crises. In terms of where do I fit in the world of music? I kind of find that endearing in a way, because I don't know, like, and I'll talk about it later, but you know, we're always used to these great musicians being just like perfect every time, and I've seen this guy really kind of struggle through different eras to figure out kind of where he's
Well,
going. You know?
I think part of the problem was that he didn't really have a band keeping him in line. You know what I mean? Like if he had like 3 other definitive members or 4 other members or whatever, where he had to kind of step up to the bar and be a member of the band, excuse me, as opposed to being the guy. And hang on one second, guys. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that he was just kind of used to doing whatever his muse kind of, and his old man was like, sure, yeah, we'll record it. Sure, we'll put it out. Whatever, you know, whatever you say. Corthon. Corthon, my son.
I mean,
Welcome
he
to the
obviously
machine.
had no problems with experimentation. Like he just didn't give a fuck, dude. But at least with those Corthon solo albums, he knew that he probably couldn't put a Bathory name on those and sell it as such because they were different enough from the rest of the discography.
Right.
But that otherwise, it's like, yeah, I don't think he really gave a shit.
All right, Devon, what do you got? I know you got some stuff to say.
My. Yeah, I forgot why I hadn't listened to this album in a while, and then like 2 tracks and I remembered why. This is basically an album of songs that wouldn't be good enough to be on Requiem. Terrible lyrics, the guitar tone's okay, the production, the drum machine is super annoying, but yeah, I don't have much to say about this record. There's a reason I don't own it. It's not worth owning. Also,
You've never owned this one?
someone could give it to me for free, and I'd probably sell it.
Well, of course you would.
I'll
Damn.
put
I
it that way.
mean, even if you wanted to be a completist, you still wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't want this
Yeah.
crap in my collection.
See, now I'm looking. I was looking through my shit to see if I had this. I couldn't find it. So, like I said, I'm guessing I never actually bought it. But now I kind of need it because that is literally the only album I don't have physically in the collection. So
That's why I love these deep dives. Everyone has to go run out.
I'm gonna begrudgingly be scouring Discogs for someone pawning it off for super cheap, and just so I can have it, so I don't have 11 of 12 albums.
You're gonna be hunting for those Corthon solo albums too, aren't you?
I could probably just call my buddy down in Vegas and just have him send them to me. I'm sure he's not listening to them anymore.
So, 2 subsequent Black and Thrash albums that are solid. Nothing new. They're very derivative of the time period. You definitely hear the Pantera guitar tone. You hear the low bass, stuff like that. Sorry, man. I'm really struggling with my voice tonight. Oh, sorry.
It was the same.
Yeah, I get that. Although I don't
Nothing
think
wrong with
everything's
that.
complete shit.
I'm going to change that now that we've done
Oh,
this.
yeah?
But, yeah, because I don't know. In lieu of this deep dive, I've changed my mind about some records. But
That's cool.
yeah.
All right, Devin. Next one up. So go ahead and tell the story about this, Devin.
What story?
Well, the fact that this was supposed to be the 5th album.
Oh yeah, because he did this in between Blood, Fire, Death, and Hammerheart. We talked about that last time.
Yeah, but what was the story?
What do you mean?
Well, why didn't he put it out?
Oh, because he felt it would be too much of a big transition. Like going from Blood, Fire to this, he felt would be like too big of a jump forward, I guess.
What do you think?
Well, it doesn't make any sense 'cause he did Hammerheart next. I don't know why it would be that big of a jump, but anyway.
I think Hammerheart was a bigger jump, actually.
Yeah, exactly. But Of the Viking stuff, this is by miles my favorite record he did, and honestly, this is one of my top 3 favorite albums he did with any era. I fucking love this record. As much as I like a lot of the Viking stuff, this is one of the few out. This is his only album in that era where I pick out individual songs from this record I actually remember. Because all the other ones, you could kind of pick different songs, put them on one record, and you wouldn't think anything different. But to me, this one has some of the best songs he did, like the title track, Man of Iron, Wild Man, The Woods Woman, The Lake. And and some of the acoustic parts was a little bit more, not folk metal. It's not like cheesy, but it's a little bit of like old Swedish folk stuff in the like more acoustic stuff. But yeah,
Oh, there's definitely more of that.
Yeah, the cover
and
is
this,
best
yeah.
too.
I have a T-shirt of this, and there is some, and there's some more up-paced songs because a lot of his Viking stuff is just kind of slow and like atmospheric, but this has some more upbeat songs, which is nice. And every song isn't 10 minutes long, so it doesn't get super boring. Like, let me think. Oh, nice. Yeah, the longest song on this record's 10 minutes, but all the other ones are between 2.5 and 6. So yeah, great record.
Yeah, this is one I remember listening to way back when and kind of going, okay, there's some good stuff here. There's some really good songs on this. Just the composition level has come way, way up. And it's not as goofy as some of the stuff on Hammerheart and Twilight with the vocals. In fact, the vocals on this album, overall, for the most part, there's still some cringy moments, but overall, they're actually pretty good for the clean vocals, which is where Corthon always came up super flat for me. The clean vocals were always an issue, and it made liking a lot of that stuff. Excuse me. It makes liking a lot of that stuff difficult because the vocals just kind of put a damper on it for me. But this particular album, the vocals fit the songs a lot better. The songs are very proggy, very fleshed out, very elaborate, very what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of soundscapey and like TV soundtracky. A lot of this stuff has that vibe to it. Trying to remember what songs. Let me see. What did I do here? Oh, I really like the Sword Stallion and was that Swordsman or what's the one after that?
The Wood
Stallion.
Woman. The Wood Woman.
Wood Woman. Yeah, that one's really cool. That's a great track. But really, there's not anything on here that I found reprehensible or disgusting. I really like most of it. It's pretty cool. And I'm not one of those, I do always get a little with these kind of albums. I start thinking, here we go into the power metal thing, because there is some power metal-y vibes on it at times, but it's not usually the sing-songy choruses and stuff that I'm not really into. So, it still stays pretty epic sounding. I think again, Jimmy, that word keeps coming up. Epic. Is it Viking? Metal. Is it Viking? I don't know. They're talking about Vikings, so yeah, it's about Vikings. But it's epic.
Yep.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like we talked about the first stream. I talked about how the Viking era kind of wasn't really my thing. We talked about how it almost more. It was always kind of confusing how this was considered Viking metal when it could have just been. It was more just to me like epic heavy metal, and this kind of follows suit. And I think this is one of those albums that I know people have always really dug, and over like the last few years, I've kind of like checked into it to try to see like if I could like get into it, and it never really it never clicked for me. And I always kind of chalked it up to just being kind of like for, Hammerheart and Twilight of the Gods, that like I dug the music, especially, with those two records. I had a really, really hard time with the vocals, like we talked about on the first one, and maybe kind of like ruined my own enjoyment of those. Whereas maybe I find it interesting how this was, written, I guess, or I don't know if it's written or recorded before Hammerheart and the second one, Twilight of the Gods, but
Yep.
because I find this one so much more just like focused, I feel like, in terms of the songwriting and the melodies, and for sure the vocals for me like work so much better on this.
Yeah.
I started to think like maybe if he would have done the vocals kind of more like this on those records, maybe I would have enjoyed them more. I'm not really sure, but at the same time, I didn't really enjoy this record at all because it just didn't really like hit me, and I always chalked it off that it just this stuff just wasn't really for me. Getting ready for this stream, I really, really immersed myself in this album, and I think it finally clicked for me last week. Honestly, I don't know, man. I got a park right by my house. I went and took a walk and put that record on really loud, and really just for the first time, I really felt like it hit me in a way that it hadn't before. And I realized that, this is really a great record. And it's just surprising that this came before all that stuff, because it just feels more, I don't know, just focused and just inspired in terms of like the songwriting. And there's a lot of really good songs on here. It's not a perfect record. I feel like the last song probably wasn't really necessary because it's sort of just like a recounting of the opening track. But I don't know, it just felt like definitely in terms of the vocals, I mean, they're not perfect here, but they're a lot easier to listen to than it was for me on the previous ones, and to the point to where I guess maybe I kind of accepted a little bit more that this was Viking metal compared to epic heavy metal, Viking metal. There's some flirtation with power metal, whatever you want to call it. It truly, I think, elevated for me this like style that he does, and I've really come to love it actually so far. And I kind of now I'm it's amazing, like you can take a record that you just never really dug and listen to it so many times, and then at some point in your life there's not a lot of records I could say that about, but this one definitely did it for me. And I really love it a lot at this point.
Did you get into this one yet, Taylor?
No, not yet.
Go for it.
So I remember when this first came out, it's on the stores. My buddy and I got super excited. We put it on. Mind's blown because just the level of, the use that overused word, epicness that was blasting out of the speakers on it. This is definitely one of my favorite Bathory albums. As much as I love, really, Under the Sign, Blood, Fire, Death, those two albums, I think I have a softer spot for the true Viking albums, the Hammerheart, Twilight, this album, the albums we're going to discuss later on at the end of this evening. So this is, I don't know if this is my favorite of the Viking albums, but it's definitely up there, and it definitely has some of his best songs and some of my most favorite Bathory songs. Like, Devon already mentioned most of them, but like Man of Iron, great song and influential song. Like there's newer folk artists now, like Vulcansman, that do covers of it. Gods of Thunder of Wind and of Rain is probably like one of my most favorite just metal songs, period, from anybody. That's just a badass tune. I just love that chorus. And One Eye Old Man is like, One Eye Old Man reminds me of an old punk rock song, really.
Totally.
It's just I don't know. The whole
like
album
like a minstrel singing or something.
Yeah. But the one thing we're talking about how this was the album he was working on this as he was working on Hammerheart. If you read, like, I don't know if the album, the vinyl comes with the huge, like I said, I call him novella because he had a lot of words about this album that he provided in the lyric book on the CD, and he was working on tracks, but he'd actually forgotten about these tracks and came across them years later, and they're all like scratch tracks. None of them were really completed, fully fleshed out tracks. And he started listening to them again. And he was like, "Oh shit, I should really do something with these." And then he actually worked on making fully fleshed out songs out of this. A couple of them were fairly complete. I think there was one or two of the songs that actually were fairly completed songs that he just, I don't know, updated through production and, put the finishing touches on or whatever. But yeah, there's something he came back to. He shelved because I don't know why he wouldn't have done this instead of Hammerheart, honestly, because just the more up-tempo nature of a lot of the songs seemed like it would have been a smoother transition from Blood, Fire, Death than Hammerheart ended up being.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, it wasn't intended. It could have been the fifth album, but it wasn't originally intended to be the fifth album because he never had anything finalized.
It would have made later. It would have made more sense though.
Absolutely, but I think I think another thing he talks about, I think he was like on a classical music kick or something. I think that's why he went full on with Hammerheart, because it has that more, just that big open Wagner type of feel to it.
Yeah,
So it's probably what it was.
I think that if I had heard this one versus Hammerheart, which I'm not as favorable on, mainly because the vocals are just so fucking terrible. But if I think if I would have heard this one next after Blood, Fire, Death, I'd have been like, yeah, that's the shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird that he decided not to go down that route and ended up putting two black and thrash albums out instead.
Yeah,
which is fine. They're decent enough albums. The vocals are so much better on this than look here, much more varied. I hear new wave of British heavy metal on here. There's absolutely like chord progressions of new album on here. There's the classic rock. There's a lot of proggy stuff on here. But again, I keep coming back to it's just epic trad metal. I just always keep thinking it's with a focus on Viking lore and Norse mythology. It's still just traditional metal that is what I hear. That's what I'm hearing. With some Swedish folk and Norse folk, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this was also a concept album, right? I mean, like you can kind of feel more of a to me, like
concept.
It feels more of a narrative throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing I forgot to point out.
Sorry about that.
Good call. I said that's the other thing I forgot to point out.
Oh yeah.
Good call.
Well, the interesting thing about that too is that sometimes he sings in a sing-songy like story type delivery. Did you notice that?
Right, and I really like that about this. Yeah, it kind of has that conceptual feel to it. Whereas,
right,
and I can kind of see like what Tyler was saying. Like if you listen to, like Hammerheart, there was this like really crazy like symphonic, Wagner-esque kind of thing going on. But this has like a really kind of driving sort of riffage to it that really to me, like has me bobbing my head a lot harder than like some of those older ones.
Yeah, the lake is great, super catchy. Like I said, that trilogy of Sword, Stallion, and what's that one called?
Wood Woman.
Wood Woman. Yeah, that one's. That's probably my favorite track. Wood Woman is really, really cool.
Well, and also the lake. Marty was saying that's a
yeah,
super
cool. And these are like these are catchy songs. They're like, like they have earworms on them.
Yeah.
Which you don't really expect to say that with Bathory. But that's kind of where he was getting to with with his ability to write songs.
So there's one album, Jeff, I think you would like a lot. I just remember this. So there's a band from Sweden called Arab Altor, and their first couple records is basically this album mixed with Messiah Air Candlemass.
Yes.
What's the name of them?
Like the first 3 or 4 albums.
What's the name of the band?
Hang on.
Arab Altor.
Man, that's a new one. Never heard that one before.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. Their last few albums, they've gone in a much more decided black metal direction.
Yeah.
Like harsh vocals and everything. But the first, like, I think 2 or 3 albums or 3 or 4, I mean, it is like Blood on Ice type of metal. Like he said, mixed with like Candlemass. It's more of like a doom metal.
It's like if Candlemass wrote a Viking metal album.
Yeah, and it's fucking good. But I like the newer stuff. But yeah, they, like I said, they went off. They just kind of veered off and then went totally black metal all of a sudden. Kind of weird.
So they did the reverse of Bathory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that what's the name of that track? What is it? Something 763 or something?
Yeah, I forget.
I forget the 1693 or whatever it is.
1693,
yeah. That song is fucking total Bathory worship, and it's killer. So good.
Yeah.
So good. So epic. So proggy. Just so kick ass. Black. There's just enough black metal in there. Yeah. I mean, whereas Bathory has some really high points for me, there's also a lot of points, whereas I don't have those with Enslaved. They're almost all high points. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, a bad Enslaved record's still like an 8 out of 10.
What's that?
A bad Enslaved still like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. Or in Jimmy's world, that's a 10 out of 10. All right, so
I like Geld. It's not my favorite Enslaved album, though. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
I forget what the fuck. My mind's weird. Mine's Monumentation. I'm kind of the odd man out. I really like that.
That one kicks ass. I like that
killer
one.
Album, yeah. But I like Bloodheim's fucking Savage and they're all good. They're all good.
Bloodheim is actually my favorite Enslaved album.
They're fucking great.
Monumentation is actually my least favorite. I might be fucked in the head.
Yeah, you are. There's no question about that. You're beyond fucked in the head. You're super fucked. Yeah, I'm trying to
that one's great
here, but I think I'm losing my voice. Next one up. So we all agree that one's a pretty much a banger.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Next up, we've got Destroyer of Worlds, right?
Yeah.
Who's got that? Who's got this one?
This one's a pain in the ass to find on vinyl, so I don't own it.
Nobody has this one?
I have.
Oh, okay.
Boom.
All right, tell us about it. Oh, real quick. That came out. Sorry. Black in here a little bit. Sorry, guys. October 1st, 2001. Under Black Mark. The same old thing. The same Brain Trust Q and Boss and at their studio. So go for it.
So this one, I'm not gonna actually read all my notes on this because this album is such a weird fucking album. One of my notes I wrote on here, because I actually went track by track because every track does something different. Seems like, and I actually liken this to like a Jubileum compilation, but as a actual realized album. And you have tracks like Lake of Fire, the title track, one or two others that sound like they could have been, they're almost either progressing from Blood on Ice or like leftovers from Blood on Ice. Then you had songs like Bleeding, which was like it sounded like a leftover track from Octagon or Requiem. You have 2 tracks in a row, 109 and Death from Above. They're about World War II planes. Makes you wonder if he was working on a World War II concept album at some point and then threw that out the window. And then you have like, the one track I really wanted to point out, Pestilence. Pestilence sounds like a fucking Black Sabbath song
Yeah,
through
it
and
does.
through. It's bluesy, heavy, even vocally, it sounds like old school Black Sabbath. So that one was really surprising. And this is another album I hadn't listened to in a really long time. And I just remembered it was kind of a mixed bag of kind of oddities. Chrome was cheesy as fuck, singing about his motorcycle. Sudden Death, a play-by-play on a hockey game, but it's a pretty rockin' tune otherwise. If you don't pay attention to the lyrics or the crowd noise, that's
the lyrics drag me out every single time. It's like cringe.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, it felt like it was like if this was released as a Jubileum compilation album, and like he just made up some shit like, oh no, leftovers from this or demo tracks from this, I think I would have bought into it a lot more than as a fully realized full album, just because there's so much different things happening throughout the album. But when the songs, the really good songs, when they hit, they fucking hit. Like I said, I really like that Pestilence track. I like Lake of Fire. I like the title track.
Ode is really killer.
Ode is really awesome. I wrote about that one. Kill, Kill, Kill. Kill, Kill, Kill. The opening track on that reminded me of fucking Rapture from Morbid Angel. I mean, it's like I don't know what he was doing with this album.
I like the Destroyer song. It's kind of almost weird. It's like droney. Like it has sort of a droney sort of thing that, I mean, Lake of Fire is great. That's like a fucking total banger.
Like you said, it sounds like it's either a continuation from Blood on Ice or something that he just didn't feel it fit, or something he didn't feel was going to fit from the Nordland albums, or whatever the case. But it definitely has that vibe. But like I said, I had to do track by track. I had to write down like a track by track concise notes, just because every song is different. Like you can't summarize the whole album as a collective whole, other than mixed bag.
Yeah.
Who's next? Devon?
Yeah, I agree. It's just like, what Bathory album do you like? This is basically an album of every fucking era. It's like a greatest hits of Bathory, kind of. But
yeah.
I agree. It definitely is like a Jubileum compilation. It's like, here's a Sabbathy kind of track. Here's a droney track. Here's a thrash track. Here's a black track. Here's an atmospheric track. It's like, dude, make up your mind.
Yeah, it's pretty varied album.
It is, but he needed to stay with one style and stick with it instead of doing everything. But I saw an interview with him where he said he did that because he noticed his fans, half of them like the epic stuff and half of them like the more aggressive stuff. So he tried to write an album to please everybody, but I don't know why you're doing that. But good record. All the songs, like you said, are definitely my favorites, like Pestilence, Death from Above, the title track, Lake of Fire. Kill, 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 yeah. Good record, but it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I want to say about Kill, Kill, Kill is the vocals. Like he's got to have one song where he absolutely shits the bed vocally, and that was that track.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about Destroyer is, for the most part, I'd say for at least 50 to 60% of the album, he doesn't sound like an idiot. Like he does on some of the earlier stuff that I'm just like, ugh. But I mean, there are still moments where he starts chasing a melody line that just isn't there, and he tries to force it, and you're like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, just so weird. Like, he'll kind of be doing that. He kind of does that. He whines. He gets real nasal and whiny.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, man, that is just not good. No bueno. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to lubricate my throat here with some warm coffee because I'm like struggling to. This one I checked out, and I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, mainly because of the variety. Like, there's a lot of variety on this one as far as like styles. It's not all like Requiem, just straight up black and thrash or Viking metal or prog or whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, and like I really do Lake of Fire. I don't know why, but every time I every time I like hear it though, I think of what's the fucking Nirvana song? All about the 4th of July. What's Lake of
Oh,
Fire? Every time
oh,
I like when I think of it, I think of that for some reason. It's like, oh god, I fucking hate that song, man. I hate.
isn't that a cover anyway?
Yeah, it is, but it's Kurt.
Yeah,
Seriously, man.
yeah, I feel it.
No, thank you. Anyway, this one's pretty good. I thought I wrote down some other titles here. Like I said, it's a good mix of epics and prog, the Viking stuff. There's some decent thrash in there. Um, the good thing is his voice doesn't detract from the. It doesn't hurt the quality of the songs for the most part when he's not nailing it. So, Jimmy, you got any thoughts on this one, or did you already hit this one?
No, not yet. I was pretty interested to because I had never another one that I'd never really listened to before. Getting ready for this, and initially I was like really excited to delve into because I knew of the variation of the songs in this, and for me like I like variation in albums and things, and I was thinking like this one might be the one for me.
Right.
Unfortunately, yeah, I kind of missed the cut a bit. Like right off the bat, I mean, the first 3 tracks are great. And I think Tyler and Devon kind of nailed it, and talking like maybe I would have accepted this a little bit more as, if I'd have known that this was kind of just a collection of B-side tracks, rather than a proper full length, but it wasn't really quite what it was. So I think it maybe could have been good or just really great, aside from just being pretty inconsistent overall, I kind of just enjoy it for what it is. And like, even just some of the shittier songs are just kind of fun. And I don't really take it too seriously other than the fact that, it's just like, you got some of the epic kind of Viking stuff, but then it kind of delves into like this weird, like power chord, Pantera groove kind of shit. And then, it's just kind of a goofy record and kind of goes further in what I was saying is like, I just wonder like what kind of like sort of identity crisis he was going through, like if this was any similar to what he had gone through before, or just because I mean, if we think about it, I mean, like at this point, since Twilight of the Gods, we've had Requiem, Octagon, and Blood on Ice, which was a recycled record, and then Destroy Our Worlds, where it's like, so really, I can't really look at Blood on Ice in that trajectory because obviously it came before that. Even though it was released between this, like he went through this period of 3 records where he just wasn't really sure exactly where he was going to take the band. And, it's again, I still find it kind of interesting to see that sort of like really weird growth period for this guy, because we all know he can write great stuff and he can write good songs. He just doesn't really know quite what he's doing at this point. So I find this a very, very interesting record. If something that I really wouldn't want to listen to very often, it's more of a very important piece of history, I think, just to look at where his trajectory was at this point. So, but yeah, off the bat, those first 3 tracks are really great. It just kind of devolves into kind of goofiness again. And so it's kind of hard for me to take this as a proper full length as it is, but it is what it is. And, I will also say that, we're getting towards the end of his life, which is a very sad thing. And I'm just glad that this wasn't the last record. I'll say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one sounds a lot like it was a solo thing, like him just putting the pieces together. But I think there's some good tracks in there overall. I think it's generally a solid album. I wouldn't necessarily, really, since Blood, Fire, Death, I don't, okay. Notwithstanding Blood on Ice, prior to that, there was 4 or 5 records that all of them were decent. They were, like you said, there was a bit of a identity crisis about what are we doing here? Are we going to be this black and thrash band? Are we going to be the impetus that started first wave black metal, which I still don't think they were. I think we all kind of agreed on that Bathory never really was the linchpin for giving those early, you know, first wave black metal bands their sound, because Bathory didn't really have that sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When I wonder if he he could have maybe went back and did another Blood Fire Death or something, but it's just like, it almost feels to me like, listening to his like more at this point modernized like thrash, aggro thrash kind of like, aggro metal kind of stuff, that it almost felt like he was like taking influences from more recent things that you saw at Headbangers Ball or whatever it was, and trying to say, let's see how this works. Like, that's why I say identity crisis, because it feels to me like it's more forced than it is like it really just was like coming from his heart. Because we've seen what this guy does when it comes from his heart, and not really having to worry about like what the genre is or whatever it is. It kind of just felt like,
well,
how does it work, with my sound? Right?
I do think, and I don't know this for sure, but I do remember him being a pretty prominent figure in the black metal scene. So you had a lot of articles in Kerrang and these magazines. And I bet to a degree it was always kind of tough for him to separate what am I going to do for my next trick? What am I going to do to sell the next biggest amount of albums? Or, what do I do to top what I did the last time? And, I think to some degree there was always people sort of placating him with these thought processes that, oh, you started black metal. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying?
And maybe because all the crazy guys burning churches were influenced by him, maybe he kind of felt guilty for that a little bit.
Could
be. I mean, the good news is he wasn't doing the crazy church burning and psycho weirdo stuff. He was just, he was more of a nerd, a studio nerd for the most part,
Yeah, but you got to wonder if he looked at that and was like, man, I want to just like step further away from that, or like embrace like what.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the guys like Enslaved. They always seem to very wisely choose to steer clear of a lot of that. They were on Death Like Silence for, I think, Viking Lager Veldy, right? But and they were friends with Oyston, but I don't think they were buying into all the nuttiness, the insanity, the church burnings, and all that kind of stuff. They kept it a lot more pure.
Right, but it's also interesting to see that it doesn't seem like Quorthon ever really felt compelled to do another black metal record or anything of it. It's like he didn't even want to touch what he did there.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, he had to have seen his influence on, the second wave and what was coming out at the time, right? Because at this point, a lot of those bands are already out.
Right.
I just wonder if he looked at that thinking, I don't really like that part of my past, or I definitely don't want to either. I don't want to touch it, or I just don't think I can do it better, or, because like, the guy's a chameleon in terms of like the types of styles that he did. So it does beg you got to wonder, like, at this point, like, he's doing so much different stuff. Why didn't he do like a more black metal record again? Could have done it.
Well, Marty has a good point there. For as quote unquote influential as he was, it always felt like he was trying to make it. And I think to some degree, just based on the articles, the print articles at the time, it did seem like he carried around maybe some extra pressure to kind of be the scene creator. You know what I mean?
Like, keep innovating, you mean? Like, just like,
say again?
Like in terms of like keep innovating, like keep.
Well, yeah, being this quote unquote innovative, genre defying guy, maybe he was always searching because he felt like he hadn't nailed it yet. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to deliver all the time.
Yeah, that could very well be.
I mean, it just sort of seemed that way because it wasn't like, you know, as far as I know, they were never a live concern, right? Except for very early on.
Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't like he was putting a lot of stress and effort into creating the live show or, you know, what the spectacle was going to be. Like some bands like Merciful Fate and, you know, bands like that that really put together, you know, say what you will, even Kiss, you know, I mean, just larger than life rock show, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This guy wasn't doing that. So he was basically spending all of his time in a studio writing music. But it seems like Jimmy said that he wasn't always sure who he was what masters he was serving, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting too, right? Because like, you know, you think about all those influential bands at the time, most of them would have been touring and becoming big, like Marty said, you know, I mean, like, I guess he could have never really truly made it to the level you would expect, you know, if you can't tour and, you know, have a live presence, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, you know,
At least at that point.
there are some projects, I guess, that, you know, they sell well enough to be like Arion, you know, Arion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear of him? Arjen Lukinson or whatever his name is. He's got this massive project of, you know, like 40 people involved, and they put out double and triple albums and stuff, but he doesn't ever tour it. Because if he did, it would be logistically a nightmare, you know.
Yeah, they just do it one-off, like special huge event shows.
Yeah, on occasion they'll do like a one-off show where he puts the whole show out, but generally speaking, it's generally they don't ever tour, which is kind of what this guy did, you know. So he could get more and more elaborate with these albums and get really over the top with them, and not have to worry about putting that thing out there live, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a good point though, Jimmy. Like, who knows? You know, in the small hours, was he just sitting there going, "Man, I got to be more like Guns N' Roses," or "Man, I got to be more like
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi," or yeah, Bon Jovi, right? Yeah, right. That I'm loving that new Blut aus Nord Bon Jovi. It's good. It's a Cthulhu based western.
We
Based
need
on,
we need a Blue Dot Snort Bon Jovi big band, you know.
that's fuck yeah, man, that would be killer. All right, so what do we got left here? We've got the two Nordlands, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
What do you got there, Dev?
This is a compilation that has both of them.
Well, aren't you special?
Nice.
Is that like a 4 LP or is that just a DL 2 LP?
That's a 2.
Okay.
So what? LP1 is Nordland 1, and LP2 is Nordland 2.
And these came out when they come out on Black Mark, I think.
Yeah.
I
First
left
one was November of 2002. And then March of 2003 was the last one.
Yep.
What you want to say about this one there, Dev?
So when I listen to this, I always listen to both of them. I don't just listen to one or the other. If I listen to honestly, I think they work together better, both together as like a full idea. But I will say if I do listen to them together, I think Nordland 2 has like higher peaks, but also kind of lower valleys, if you know what I mean. Like there's a bunch of good songs for both of them, but I don't know. They're not really, unlike Blood on Ice, they're not really albums I listen to just for specific songs. I have to listen to the whole thing. So, but he did definitely go out on a high point, though. But
yeah,
I like this better than Hammerheart and Twilight, but not as much as Blood on Ice.
This is a Necrolord, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Did Necrolord do Blood on Ice?
I think
Two?
so. That'd be surprising if he didn't. Let me see.
What's his name again? Christian
Christian Whalen, I think.
Whalen.
Yep, Christian Will and Equilud did it.
All right. Oops.
Yeah, he did Blood
Yep.
on Ice in both Nordland albums.
Jimmy, what do you got to say about these? I think you were a little surprised by them, right?
Yeah, prepping for this, I had listened to Nordland 1 like years ago, and I remember liking it, not being like a huge, like really just very knowledgeable of the Bathory camp. But prepping for this, and I think this one really didn't take long to click for me. And I'd probably go as far to say this is probably my favorite Bathory record at this point, Nordland 1. I just feel like this is the most inspired, the most just best, just a lot of focus on what he was doing. Like he went back to doing, I guess, what I think truly this is what he wanted to do, and just kind of found his way back to it and did it in such a way that was better than ever in terms of just the memorability, the songwriting, the catchiness of the melodies. I've always said that, for me, melody is what really drives me a lot of times with music. And this is very much, I hold it in very high regard at this point. It just, from front to back, I don't think there's a bad song on Nordland 1. And it's kind of mind-blowing, really. It's really mind-blowing to see, like, kind of having gone through his discography and seeing like his lows, and then seeing him at such a high on this. I mean, the guy just sounds on fire. He sounds like the most professional songwriter I have ever heard at this point, compared to like some of, the other choices that he made on previous records. I definitely found as well vocally at his best here. I think at the end here, he almost like really found his voice. I feel like, there's moments where he kind of, sort of devolves into his sort of, at this point, I accept like the flaws in his vocals, but I really think that like he found what he's really good at vocally. And one interesting observation I made, and I'll preface this by saying that I don't think that either of these artists like influenced each other whatsoever. Maybe they did. I got to tell you though, man, I hear a lot of Devon Townsend on this record.
Oh, dude, that's exactly what I thought. Exactly what I thought.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I don't think I really wonder if Devi was influenced by Bathory. Because I know that Devi flirted a lot with like a lot of epic heavy metal records, and I'd be surprised if he wasn't, because Quorthon's mid-range, like his mid-range on a lot of these songs, like toward the middle, really kind of sound like Devi in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of like, and it's not just the vocals. I think like it's the way like he writes the riffs and like the layering.
I was going to say the layering. Yep.
Yeah, the layering. It really, really at this point. What is this, like 2003? Devi's probably, pretty established at this point. He's probably, quite a few. At this point, he probably
2000
or something.
2003 would have been the year that he sang for Steve Vai on Sex and Religion.
Was that
2003?
Yeah, so he would have been. He would have been established at this point. So
he'd already done.
I wouldn't have thought Quorthon. I definitely wouldn't think Quorthon got any influence from Devi. I think would have been vice versa. But it's really interesting to hear that parallel, even though not having anything. Like I said in the first stream that I thought I heard a lot of Dave Mustaine in those early riffs in the first record when Megadeth wasn't quite there yet. So it's just it's always, I don't know if it's like one of those just coincidences or whatever, but I would implore anybody that is not like into Bathory that like would maybe like I would say go to Nordland, because it just has that really amazing catchiness and beautiful melodic quality to it that is really kind of mind-blowing. And I love this record, man. It's probably my favorite.
Which is the song that he wrote talking about America? Wasn't there a song he wrote talking about America on one of the Nordland albums?
I didn't
pay close enough attention. He's got a song called Vinland, which is the old
That's
name.
about Germany,
Yeah.
which I found that interesting. I also found interesting that he had a song called "Blood and Soil."
But you also gotta like, I mean, man, like the riffs and everything. You can't help but feel like the conviction behind it. I don't know. It's just there's so much like maturity to this compared to. I don't know. I mean, you can argue that, but I mean, even Marty pointed out "Ring of Gold." I mean, that's such a beautiful song. "Forever Darkwoods." I mean, you go
That's
down
a
the
good one.
track list, and every single song is amazing. You know, yeah.
Well, there you go. Vinland was what they called North America.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Didn't know that.
Oh, really? Huh.
Nope. I'm not a big student of the North mythology, to be honest.
Yeah.
What
So good, man.
what you got to say Taylor? Tyler?
Well, I showed these to Jeff before, but I got to show off my copies of Nordland.
Oh, you bastard.
So my buddy got these direct from Blackmark. There's something they were doing upon the release of Nordland 2, where they had so many copies that were signed by Quorthon. So he got a set for himself and for me. And, it's funny, they're signed items, but I play the fucking shit out of these albums. I don't care. It's cool that it has a signature on it, but I play the fuck out of these CDs. Like, they're still...
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what you could get for those if you really put. You'd probably get a couple $100, I think.
Probably. And it's really funny because I've brought it up in various chatting with people in various Facebook groups, whatever, about the signed copies, and no one's ever heard of these. But it was something that Blackmark made pretty prominent. I mean, in the early 2000s, websites were still a little janky back then, but it was an online thing.
Right.
But anyway, as far as the albums go, it's not like Devon said. It's almost better to talk about these as a collective whole, because it is kind of a conceptual piece between the two albums. While he said that Nordland 2 have the higher highs, I would argue, basically my thoughts are this. But Nordland 1, I think, had the bigger, to me, standout songs, like Nordland, Ring of Gold, Forever Darkwoods. Those are like really standout songs. While Nordland 2, it has like the Sea Wolf, Death and Resurrection of Northern Sun, Flash of the Silver Hammer. They're great, great, great songs. But I felt like Nordland 2 was more consistent from top to bottom. Like every song was like just a fucking great song. While Nordland 1, every song was great, but there was a couple songs that were like more great that stood out a little more to me. But I mean, Jimmy already touched on it. Like the production, everything about this was his high point for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he absolutely went out on top. And we're talking in the, we're talking in the live chat here. He was working on a Nordland 3 when he passed. And then, there's other things that come out that he was working on another album that was just the Vikings. So I think he was going to go all in on this subject matter and really just delve into it and just become this epic metal band. And the point I brought up was one of the things they found like scratch tracks and liner notes or track notes for what would be the Nordland 3. And all the working titles were in Swedish. And that was the first songs that he had done where he actually had logged everything in Swedish. So it makes me wonder if it would have been an album in his native tongue. So that would have been interesting. That would have been different for sure. I mean, I really don't know what else to say about these albums except they're just. I mean, this is like the Hollywood blockbuster movie of his music. I mean, everything's huge, everything sounds good, everything's polished, everything's perfect. I mean, it's just, and even some of the spots you were bringing up, Jeff, where some of the vocals, he kind of loses loses the hold on the good vocals for a hot minute. Even then, it's not as glaringly obvious as it
Right.
was like in Hammerheart and those albums.
Yeah, they're not as overall cringy.
They're not detractors by any means.
Right. It's not as cringy. Not as cringy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hang on a minute here. Devon, did you talk about these the whole way?
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really. What I noticed about these was I put them on and I just let them roll. I didn't sit there and like look for highs and lows. The only thing I think I kind of preferred 2 a little bit because, as Devon said, I think the high points are a little higher. But it's pretty amazing that a guy that had some production issues throughout his career, I think it's fair to say that he had some production issues on albums, puts these final 2 albums out and they're just massive. They're just, they're Technicolor sound, and you nailed it, Jimmy. I that's the first thing I thought of was this sounds like a Devin Townsend album. Like right away, I'm like, this sounds like maybe one of the 4 that he put out. I forget the one that Michael Ockerfeldt was on. Shit. Disconnected, is that what it was called? Disconnection? Deconstruction. Yeah. Just everything in the kitchen sink, it's like you're just insanity with how much is going on production wise. And that's how those, the old the City from Strapping Young Lads sounded. Just balls to the wall, mind blowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, Nia, I mean, like the one thing I didn't say because I just kind of talked about part 1, but part 2, like it's almost like I always felt like there was a little bit of a progressive like tinge to the first part, whereas like the second one, like it was more like really harkening back to his real true Viking stuff. But every bit is brilliant, and yeah, I agree. The whole thing needs to be listened to and kind of should be, considered as one big work.
And the other thing too, I think that since what I noticed with these Nordland albums was I wasn't as distracted by some of the points where he didn't nail the vocal exactly. You know what I mean? Like he'd do that thing where he'd be singing pretty decently and then he'd sort of chase something like where he was chasing the note and you're like, don't do that. But even in those cases, it wasn't like deplorably bad. Which, the truth of the matter is, no matter how I slice it with Bathory, it's always the clean vocals in particular are always going to be an issue for me because they're just not that good. I can generally overlook it to an extent because the music's quite good. It went on the albums that the music is good. There is some albums where it's not as good, but yeah, I mean, when as I said, being upfront about this, when I came into this, of course, I knew about the first Bathory album in the summer of '85. That was the first time I heard it, and I just didn't get it because I also wasn't a big fanatic of Venom around that time. To me, Venom sort of seemed almost kind of like a joke. They were super sloppy and, all the Satanist stuff and everything was just kind of silly. But they were pretty critical back then. That was a critical, very important band that I probably dismissed a little too readily. And I think I kind of did that with Bathory way back when, too. It was like, this is just a bunch of fucking noise.
Yeah,
I did, too.
You know what I mean, Jim?
Yeah, I did the same thing. I mean,
it's almost like I kind of went in with a predisposition about how much I should or shouldn't like these albums. And, I think doing this opened my eyes to several things. The guy was pretty fucking talented. And I think what really blew my mind as he grew as a composer was just the scope. He just had a pretty grand epic scope, and to be able to put together some of these tracks the way they did, you know, in very, very early stages of software back then. Keep in mind, you know, you don't have back then. You didn't have Pro Tools at the level that you do now, where you've got, you know, unlimited digital tracks. You can do anything. You know, you can layer 400 guitars on top of each other if you want. You know, you couldn't do that back then, and for him to be able to kind of create some of the artistic pieces of work that he did, you know, it was pretty interesting. And the guy was a much better guitar player than I thought he was initially. Like, I kind of thought he was just kind of a bit of a speed guy that was a bit of a hack, you know. But now he's got some good riffs and some really well thought out proggy stuff on the acoustic, and you know, the guy he grew by leaps and bounds as a musician as the band continued to put albums out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I find like you know, so valuable about these deep dives is, you know, like really spending the time. Like I'm glad, you know, you invited me to, like, because it made me like really sit down and listen to the stuff. And like I had been planning for years and just never got around to it. And you realize you got to go do this shit, you know, like for classic bands and things like that, you know. And you know, kind of I would like sort of echo what I said about like Blood on Ice. I found the whole Quorthon trajectory like very endearing, as just, you know, here's a guy that was never perfect but wrote some amazing shit. You know, I mean, like we always like look at our, you know, the bands that we like and the music. I mean, like you always like expect these guys to just be perfect always. Like,
Oh yeah.
You know, you might not like the record too much, but at least the record's going to sound pretty perfect in terms of like the production value, the songwriting, whatever it does. I mean, here's a guy that really just wore his heart on his sleeves and was not perfect all the time, but really,
no, you're right. And he just
amazing stuff, you know.
He put that shit out there and just was like, I'm just gonna keep rolling. And you know, there are some limited interviews out there on YouTube. You can find a few things. I didn't really dig deep into the personality to see what the story was behind him, you know. I think I get why, to some extent, the newsworthiness, I guess, of his project back then. You know, when we talked about doing it, you know, we said Tyler wanted to jump in on this. You know, we talked about last spring, and Devon, you know, it's been one of his favorite bands, and he's like, you know, when I would talk to Devon, he'd be like, well, how many Bathory albums you have? And I'd be like, I hate to admit this, I really don't own any right now. And it's like, but I've heard most or all of them. Oh yeah, whatever, loser, poser, you know. But I kind of do feel a little bit like a poser without actually having a few of those in my collection. Doesn't mean I'm going to own them all. I'm pretty certain I won't own every single one of them, you know.
I'll be right back, guys.
Oh yeah, but there's a couple I definitely should have for sure.
Well, it's hard to have everything, you know. I mean, it's, you know, like I'm the same. I don't have too much either. I mean, I want to correct that, but totally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, doing multiple takes wasn't his thing. It was just rip it and go.
Yeah, he was.
All right, good enough. Next song.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw the first part, Marty, but you know, we talked about the vocals early on, the black metal stuff, the more, you know, harsh black and thrash stuff, which I really, really like. But his clean vocals I struggle with a lot. Not always, and they definitely got better as they went along. But man, there's like Hammerheart.
There's one song on the Jubileum compilation. It's I think he did a Viking song with the black metal vocals. It doesn't sound right. Like, it's super epic, but it has this like more retchy vocals. It just sounds off. It's like, what is this? It's pretty weird.
Where's it on? Like comp?
It's on, I think, Jubileum 102. I don't know what song it
What does
is,
that
but-
even mean? Are they comps?
Yeah, it's basically like greatest. Let me see. It's basically compilations that they did with all the
From the
Bathory
label.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically, if you want to like greatest hits of Bathory, you can buy those.
So Jimmy, which ones do you have currently right now? Any?
Blood, Fire, Death. That's the only one. Yeah, I
And
mean,
you-
I've got probably. I want to get the first four, other than Blood, Fire, Death, and definitely the Nordland and Blood on Ice.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
you're
would
gonna
probably
you're gonna
buy
end up
everything.
you're gonna end up getting most of the collection then.
Yeah, I'll probably just get everything on CD, and I'll be happy with that. It's just like this is one of those bands that I just never really quite until this point, which is why I said like I'm glad we did this deep dive because it forced me to, and I'm glad I did. But like now definitely want to go like buy all this shit. And,
Yeah, I mean it was the same way for me. Like I kind of remember back in the day going, not really. I don't really need this stuff. But I probably should have it. And then now re-listening to it, I was like, yeah, really. There's a couple here that are pretty critical.
yeah.
Could I live without Nordlands? Yeah, I could. Because I'm not as crazy about the big bombastic happy metal. I like stuff a lot more somber and
Right. It's just not your thing.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, we lost Jeff. Lost dude.
We lost the host.
There he is.
I kicked myself out.
You didn't do what you did last weekend and fall asleep on stream.
No, I hit the button and it wiped the whole stream off. I was like, oh, shit, there we go. But yeah, that so while I knew about this artist and had heard albums by them before by Bathory, I didn't really think I really need this stuff in my collection. Now I would argue that I do.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool to
Well,
do
it's
a
cool
band
because
that
it's not just stuff that you want, but it's or stuff that you really enjoy, but it's also like this is history here. Like that's important.
good way of putting it.
Yeah, and for me, like I'm sad he's dead. I mean, I think he probably would have gone on to do a lot of more great shit. And,
He might be
I don't
doing.
even know-
He
what, did he have
might
a
be
heart
doing.
attack?
Yeah, he had a heart attack. He had a heart defect apparently, like a congenital heart defect.
Maybe that's why he didn't play live, because he wasn't healthy enough to ever do it.
Could have been that. Yeah.
I wondered about that because you see pictures of him, and he was always like rail thin, but like almost unhealthy thin.
Now, sounded like he drank a lot though, which is interesting.
That's
That
maybe
that
how
doesn't
he
help.
died.
Right.
Yeah.
He wasn't eating properly and sort of basically just drinking a lot of his lunches and stuff. I wonder if that was what was going on, but I just thought it was some sort of a congenital heart defect.
Yeah, Marty just brought up. I guess apparently he was super tall too, so that could be why he
Yeah.
was so rail thin.
Yeah, he was. I think he was like 5'6'4", something like that. Big dude.
Damn.
Anybody want to talk about any of the albums in particular? Go back and hit on anything or touch on anything that we maybe didn't.
Top 3 favorite albums.
All right.
Whew.
For
What?
all albums, any album, or
Every era.
wait, say again.
Top 3 favorite albums he did every era, from the self-titled till Nordland.
Well, can't I just do a top 3 total albums?
That's what I just said.
Oh, you said every era. Oh, you mean like the?
I mean,
you
he just been out of his entire
mean
discography.
the whole discography? Okay.
Whatever
Yeah, that
you
was
do.
a weird
Favorite
way
album.
you said it.
Yeah. Probably, fuck. Blood, Fire, Death, Blood on Ice, and Under the Sign of the Black Mark.
Yeah. I think mine's gonna be Under the Sign at 1.
I'm surprised that's your favorite. I thought
Yeah,
you would go
I
for
just-
Blood, Fire,
I-
Death.
Well, Bloodfire's right there. I mean, it could be 1A. And then I gotta say, I probably like Blood on Ice. because it was kind of real proggy.
Oh, look at you, Nordland shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard, but if I had to choose right now, I'd probably go with Blood, Fire, Death, Blood on Ice, and Northland One. Those three. With it's hard to choose between Under the Sign and Blood, Fire, Death. But
Yeah, those two are so close. It's just it's one of those things that are just so close.
Yeah, this is tough. Fuck you, Devon. God, if I had to narrow it down to a top three, in no particular order, Twilight of the Gods, mainly for nostalgia. That was the first real album I got into from Bathory, and it's still a really strong album for me. Blood, Fire, Death for sure, and it's a toss up between Nordland 1 and Under the Sign for the other, because I like both of them equally well for different reasons.
Yeah, Marty was saying that Under the Sun was a great black metal album. Blueprint for the second wave. I mean, really, to me, that's the only black metal album they really did.
Yeah, I think I brought up that point the last stream.
Yeah,
where the return set the vibe, but set that ambiance for being evil. But Under the Sign was what really set it sonically, musically.
I agree. Yeah, and that's why I think I like that one the most. It's just got some. It's just got some otherworldly sort of ugliness to it that's super cool, but there's a lot of good tracks on it. I mean, you got Woman of Dark Desires on it. You got what's the big long one, Devon? The first
Enter the Eternal Fire.
Yeah. That song fucking super cool.
Yeah.
There and I think if like money was no object, of course, with my health and everything like that, obviously I'm just not running out and buying a lot of stuff at all. But I think this is a discography though that if money was no big deal, I'd probably just go grab everything just to have it. CD, not albums probably. Mm-hmm. But just because there's just so much important music there that I enjoyed digging back into and checking out. And because to be honest with you, the truth of the matter is, like, if we hadn't decided to do this, I may not listen to Bathory for another 2 or 3 years.
No, I would have made you. Don't worry.
Well, you'd have probably said something like, "Yeah, are you ever going to listen to that chump?" or something like that. But what I'm saying is, though, like, it wouldn't have been a top. It would have been something I was chasing down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't have been something I was putting a high priority on. That's why it was kind of cool that we ended up doing this, because it made me prioritize listening to them.
So if you want another band, we can do that for. I have a good idea. If you want me to get you into another band.
Who's that?
Oh, Edge of Sanity. Yeah.
Who is it?
Edge of Sanity.
Edge of Sanity.
Oh yeah.
Man.
For
Mr. Dan Swano.
Swano, yeah. Yeah, of course. I know them. What's that first one there that you had at the
That was the Spectral Sorrows.
Spectral Sorrows. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite. Too. But all of them are great.
Except the Terrible Man and War cover. I don't know why they did that. That was a bad idea.
So, I liked it, but I like Manowar too. So
kind of in conclusion on this, give me 1 second, guys. I'm just trying to get. You guys got 1 minute?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Well, I wonder about what would you say top 3 albums that Bathory directly influenced? I mean, I would say, in terms of Under the Sign of the Black Mark. I mean, you got to say Dark Throne, Under a Funeral Moon, right? Because that.
Oh, well, they got the fuck. What's the one song? The Walk the Infernal Path, or what the fuck's the one song on that album?
I think it's the first song, right?
No. Hold on. Of course, I keep buying CDs and I have so many damn CDs that there's a lot of shit that I probably should listen to more often that I don't. And that particular Dark Throne album is one of those things.
Under a Funeral Moon, or
Yeah, because that's actually my favorite. That's my personal favorite Dark Throne album. But yeah, To Walk the Infernal Fields. That sounds like Enter the Eternal Fire. Like it definitely has that kind of a vibe to it for sure.
yeah,
I mean the first track on Under Funeral Moon is not my favorite, but the rest of the album I really like a lot. You know, overall, it is my favorite Dark Throne album.
Hey, Devon. Look,
Yeah,
Marty says that the first album sounds like Motorhead and Venom.
Yeah, we said that last time, buddy. Pay attention.
and Megadeth. And
But he wasn't influenced by
I think
those
we
guys.
kind of nailed that.
He never
And
heard
Bon,
of
and Bon Jovi, remember?
That's right. He also has a certain level of Bon Joviness in the.
All right, so did y'all check that out? I think it's
What song was it again?
That was let me look it up. It's on Twilight of the Gods. And I don't know, I heard some Jovi in like some of that record, but there was one track. Under the Ruins.
Under the Ruins?
Yeah, that one's the one that sounds like Shot Down, The Blaze of Glory, kind of.
So Bathory definitely influenced these guys a lot. You know these guys?
I can't read that.
Occult Burial is from Canada.
Right. I gotta.
This is
come on.
This is like the first two Bathory albums mixed with the first Sodom EP.
Yeah, when we get done tonight, that's the first thing I'm doing is checking out Blaze of Glory and Amongst the Ruins or whatever it is to see what's
Under the Ruins. Yeah, check
Under
that
the
one
Ruins.
out. Yeah, I'm telling you. But
that'll be hilarious. If I hear that, I'm gonna be like, dude, nailed it.
his vocals aren't as good as Jovi.
Oh Christ! Yeah. And that guy can't hit the broadside of a barn anymore now. If you've seen some of the Bon Jovi clips, the memes, oh man, they're rough. They're rough, man. Like he's not even. It's funny because he's got Phil X playing guitar, and Phil X can rip, man. That dude can sing his ass off. And John's sitting over there trying to follow a melody line and cracking his voice, and you're like, oh man. But it's like people said, that guy employs like 80 people. You know, the Bon Jovi business enterprise hires a lot of people that they want to tour and go out on the road and put paychecks in people's hands for playing live, and you know what I mean? So it's like he probably feels very responsible, and he knows that he doesn't sound good. He's got, you got to know that when you're at a certain point, it's like,
Oh, what is he, like, 70? I mean, I didn't even know they were even.
Bon Jovi, now he's 65. Yeah. He's about 10 years older than me, roughly, give or take. Yeah. I'm 56. I think he's 50, 64, 65, somewhere in that range. But I think he spent a lot of time singing way out of his comfortable register, and it caught up to him. Yeah. Well, Jimmy, Geddy can't do what he used to do. Yeah. There came a point, I don't know, back in around 2000 where it was like, man, he's really struggling.
Yeah, for a while.
Mm-hmm. And it's
they changed the key on a lot of their songs just to accommodate his vocals better.
Right. I mean, how he changed singing Tom Sawyer, from What You Say About Society, he changes all that around now. Yeah. So, but, I don't know. It's been an interesting little dive to go into this and sort of reacquaint myself with it. And I appreciate Devon bugging me about it. And Tyler wanting to do it too. And I'm glad I didn't let you bail out on it, Jimmy, when you're like, I don't, I think it was worth the exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, I discovered some stuff that I don't know. I think it's pretty brilliant to that. Maybe I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have devoted the time. That's why these deep divers are good, even if it's like, you don't have to be like a fanboy of the band to like, contribute to a deep dive. You just have to put the time in to listen to the music and kind of see where you stand with it. And I think that's kind of where it really shows how important it is, whether you're participating in the deep dive or if you're watching it and telling yourself like I need to go down this band. Like I've been still like trying to go down the King's X after your King's X thing, and I need to do that. I mean, it's just
never ending.
It's important, yeah.
Yeah, but it's never ending. You turn people on, and you think you hope that they may feel the same way that you do, and I don't know how I really feel about Bathory. I think I enjoyed the lion's share of it, but if somebody came into me tomorrow and said, "Hey, you're not allowed to have any Bathory albums," sorry, I'd probably survive. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't as big a part of my, late teens, early 20s. You know what I mean? Like, I knew who this guy was. I knew some about the music, but it wasn't like a formative part of my musical education back then.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Well, if anything, like I said, it's it's still kind of like a history lesson, that whether you really found something that you gravitated towards or not, like you really learned a lot from it,
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we nailed it pretty quick because we started at like 10 after 10. So we did it in under 2 hours, which is probably a little shorter than I thought we would do it in.
Well,
I think the first part was about 3:15.
I would say to be fair, like those first couple albums, there's not really not a whole lot to go real deep in on.
True. Yeah. But I appreciate you joining me, Tyler, for your first deep dive. All good stuff.
Yeah, it was fun.
Devon, finally got you on here to say a few words for a change. Got you to do one. We'll see about Atheist. I'm not sure where I'm at with that down the road here. But Jimmy, as always,
it was a pleasure.
super cool to hang with you guys. And
what do you got planned next? Do you got any other big ones planned, or
we're talking about doing Atheist, and I was going to try and get Kelly Schaefer on from Atheist, but I think he got caught in the hurricane.
Oh,
I think it hit right around where he lives, and I sent a message, haven't heard anything back, so I don't know. That's the only thing I was looking at, was doing Atheist, those 4 albums, in the immediate future, anyways. So, but I think we're definitely running out of time, guys. Like, I know how I'm feeling now, and it's a struggle. Tonight I was gonna call it off earlier in the day, and then I thought, no, I'll try to get through it. But I'm just, I don't know whether I'm getting a cold or what. I hope to God it's not COVID. I don't think it is. But I'm like super dehydrated, and I can't. My voice. I'm struggling with my voice tonight. So it was like I was like, man, I hope I don't have to talk a lot tonight. So I didn't do too bad. I tried to be quiet as much as I could. So, but thanks again for joining me, guys. You guys rule.
Hell yeah, man.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Yep.
See ya.
Later.
See ya.